Hey everyone, welcome back. This week I'm going to show you the cookie trick and explain how it works, why it works, and why your IDORs might keep getting NA'd. I originally learned this back on my very ever first day bug hunting by my mentor Sarah, and today I'm actually going to share it all with you. Now, I've actually this is a bit of a self-roast, that when I did my original videos on this topic, I actually think I contribute to a lot of misinformation around this, but today I'm solving it. Today I am going to show you why your IDORs keep being NA'd and show you exactly how the cookie trick works. But before we start with that, we've got to thank our lovely sponsor. This video is very kindly sponsored by Integrity. Integrity is a really fast growing bug bounty platform. And what a bug bounty platform is they have like the targets, they allow you to report bugs, and they pay out for the bugs as well. So they kind of do that side of bug bounty. And because they're really super fast growing, there's actually a lot of opportunity there. With new programs and scope changes all the time, there's always plenty of new and actually really fresh things that many people have actually had the opportunity to actually go ahead and hack, both on their public programs and invite only. One of my favorite things I really like that they do is that they send scope changes as an email. So that way you can see, even when public programs have updates, and see all the cool things you can hack. I really love working with them because they're really huge supporters of the bug bounty community. They don't even just sponsor my content, they sponsor other people. I know a lot of people have already signed up, and even some people have found their first bugs. Some people have participated in the cross-site scripting challenges, and I'm really happy for everyone. If you want to sign up too, you can use my link on screen or in the video description. It's go.integrity.com/Katie. I don't get cut of your bounty or anything like that. It just lets you know that I sent you over there. So if you want to sign up, that's go.integrity.com/Katie. Let's get on with the video. So a while ago I made this video. This is one of the very first videos on my channel, called Manual IDOR Hunting. And then I made this video, which is about Firefox containers. And I made that video, which is about IDOR hunting tips. And in every one of these videos, I think I've explained this really poorly. And I've actually contributed to quite a lot of misinformation. And, I take a lot of responsibility for that. I say in my videos, just repeat the request to the admin endpoints changing the cookies. I don't actually explain in any of the videos what that means, and actually why you do that, and why that's a really good thing, and why things like Firefox containers make that really easy. And because I've actually helped spread this misinformation, I've actually caused some of you folks to get NA'd on your bugs. And I know some people might have just not understood it maybe, but I actually take a lot of responsibility for this, and it weighs on me a lot. And I think this comment particularly here, saying, I've caused many misunderstandings. And you know what? I agree. I have caused many misunderstandings. But today is the day where we fight those misinformation, right? I'm going to show you how the cookie trick works, how to find IDORs the easy way, how to find them fast, and actually how to become consistent with IDOR hunting. So let's go. Let's fix this. This is the IDOR cookie trick explained. So the first thing you might be asking is, what is an IDOR? If you've seen some of my other videos, you probably have a good idea about what an IDOR is. I make a lot of videos because they're some of my favorite bugs to hunt. I really like hunting them because they don't require a lot of technical knowledge. Not that I'm not a technical person, it's just I find the process, it's quite meditative, it's just doing the same thing. And I think it's a really good place to start. So what is an IDOR? Well, fundamentally, it is a problem in the code where the code isn't checking if a user has permissions before allowing them access to something. Okay, so let's have an example here. So this is kind of Blue Background Man, and Blue Background Man says, get my document, which is number 1000. And the web server goes, of course, and then delivers this document number 1000. Now, if we go ahead and edit that request, and we change that document ID from 1000 to 1002, it actually shouldn't let us access them because it isn't owned by Blue Background Man, it's actually owned by Green Background Man here. But when a IDOR vulnerability is present, it will work, it will just deliver it. But actually, an IDOR is 3 different vulnerabilities. And they are all kind of called IDORs. They're sometimes called by their actual names, but they're usually just called IDORs. We have broken object level authorization, broken function level authorization, and a lack of authentication. So let's have a chat about these 3 types. So the first type of IDOR is unauthenticated, which is that you can be logged out of your account completely and still access something or change something or delete something or create something new on behalf of another user. You don't even need an account. this was my first bug. My first bug was this kind. Now, you also have authenticated, which is broken object level authorization. You can access a resource while being logged in, but where the resource belongs to another user, so not you, somebody else. So an example of that is, I have an account and you're able to access my account rather than accessing your own. We then have a permission level IDOR. So this is called broken function level authorization. You can access a resource while logged in, but where the resource requires a greater level of access than you have. So this resource requires an admin account and you only have a regular user. If it works, that is also called an IDOR. Now, one thing I think gets complicated here is we're talking about two different terms, which is authorization and authentication. So what is authorization? Well, authorization is what you can do, what you have permission to do. Now, that is both on an admin versus guest versus regular user, but also having access to your resources versus having access to somebody else's. And then we have authentication. So that's who you are, that's who you're logged in as. And it's really important to separate those two concepts in your mind. And when we're looking for IDORs, we are specifically looking for this. We are looking for ways we can bypass those privileges. Now, what a lot of people think from IDORs is they require IDs. And actually, you don't require an ID to have an IDOR. So we often, because I made quite a lot of videos on APIs, they are usually there in RESTful APIs. And it's a really good sign of an IDOR. But it suggests kind of that the web app may be using the ID directly rather than the currently logged on user. What do I mean by that? Well, so what it might suggest, because this is a bug and it's not necessarily going to be there, is that they might just be checking that ID bit and just not got that little if statement there, because that's all they need to do to remedy it, is that little if statement. Literally, it just takes checking if someone's logged in, checking the user has permissions, implementing things like middleware properly. So you don't actually need an ID. But this kind of leads us to take a step back and think, how do web apps actually know who's logged in? And this is kind of a problem which kind of was against web development from quite an early start, because the internet was designed to be stateless. Now, what does stateless mean? Stateless means it doesn't know anything about the previous request that you sent. There is no difference between my request and your request. Now, this really simplifies the design of the web. We don't need to keep track of all these people's different states and who's logged in, who's not logged in, who's connected. But that worked a lot better when the internet was just single static HTML pages. As the web becomes more complex and as we need to log in, we kind of need to know where all the requests are coming from. How do you know a request is coming from me rather than coming from you, for example? And when you start to have accounts, this is when you start to have these problems. So what web developers did is they invented something called sessions. Now, a session is a way of introducing state to the internet. When you send a request, the server stores an ID which is then linked to your activity on the website. And with all future requests, you send them the ID and the server will go, oh yeah, I know who you are, and link you back to that original session. And that continues until the ID expires. And this is a really neat way. So you can see here, we have our client. So that is our web browser. We have the server. So when we log in here and it's successful, it creates a session ID, returns it as a cookie, stores it in the database. So we have this storage in the database here, and it says, okay, with all future requests, send me this cookie so I know it's you. So it sends the cookie. Then later on, whether that is the same day, whether it's a second later, whether it's 3 days later, you can always send your own session. As long as the session hasn't expired, they'll go, oh yeah, I remember you, you're that person. So if it is, and we can link it back to an account, we can start to create this kind of functionality. And this continues until it expires. So sessions can last for ages. You probably already use really long-lasting sessions when you use Remember Me on any website. And then it knows to deliver the content for your account, not anybody else's account. But this is kind of based on the server. So how do you actually know what ID to send? And this is where cookies come in. So cookies can store a bunch of different data. It's not only about sessions, but cookies are sent with every request and link back to the sessions. And cookies expire, and they can actually expire in a different timeline. So the best way to think about it is that sessions are stored on the server and cookies are stored on the client. So session S, server, cookie C, client. Now, the important thing between these two is actually you can have cookies without the sessions, but you can't have sessions without the cookies because there is no other way for a web browser to communicate that to you, unless you use kind of more complex authentication flows. Now, what you might kind of think from here is, well, can I just brute force the session? Like, if I just kept on using those numbers, wouldn't it just work? And this is when we actually close sessions. So sessions can be destroyed either when you close your web browser. So a lot of temporary sessions will end when the web browser is closed because the cookie will get removed. When it expires, so they're often set with time limits. So you can say for, okay, a week or 2 weeks from now, we will get rid of that cookie for you. And that is both on the client and the server, or when you log out, which is the client and the server as well. Now, this is going to be a bit of a problem for us when we're IDOR testing, because when we're testing for IDORs, we need to be logged into 2 accounts at once, because what we're testing is whether or not we can do something on somebody else's account, right? So to do that, we really need to make sure both sessions are awake and active. And this is where this particular trick comes in really handy. So even if you keep the session cookie via burp, you just copy it, it just won't work. The server won't recognize it if the session is ended. So let's have a look at what these look like in practice. This is the first request we send to the website here. And as you can see, there is no cookies. After we had the second request, we then see cookies. And what do we have in here? Well, we have things like, we have this B thing, but then we have things we might recognize, like EU consent. So in the EU, you need to have a cookie pop up to get the user's consent before storing cookies, especially if it relates to advertiser tracking. So between the two, the website's kind of told us, hey, here's all the cookies. Now, these totally might be just advertiser cookies, they might be tracking cookies, they can be anything. We don't actually know which one's a session cookie. So this is where changing the cookies happens. So when in my previous videos I said just change the cookies, I really wasn't clear about what it does. When we log out, it may remove the session from the server. By just changing the cookies, we're essentially logging in as another user without removing the previous session, saving us time by not having to log in and log back out again. So instead of dealing with kind of typing in the passwords a lot, dealing with different user accounts, it's a really easy way. Also, since authentication is often only done on the cookie and there's not usually something else, by copying the cookies in, you don't have to worry about, there being some other identifier. You don't have to worry about what it's actually using in terms of ID. So if it's using a UUID where you can't predict the next one, it doesn't actually matter if you just replace the cookies. So it's a really easy way to test it very quickly. So why is it important? Literally, it just speeds it up. If we have to log in and log out every single time we want to test for IDORs, it would take a really long time. And tools like Authorize will do this in the background, making it even easier for us, right? You can get this set up really quick, give it the cookie that you want to change, give it the new cookie, and then every single time you make a request, it will do it for you. Easy mode, you don't have to worry about it. So how does this link back to IDORs? So we know we have a valid IDOR bug when we can either access something without being logged on at all, access something on our account when logged into another account, access some admin functionality even if we're a regular user and we don't have permission. So let's talk about number one here, accessing something without being logged on. So how we would do that? Well, we'd create an account and log in, perform a bunch of requests. So we'll maybe edit this, access that resource. We'll go to repeater and we'll remove the cookies, effectively treating the requests as if they came from no particular user if you were just completely logged out. If they cause something to happen on our account, that's when we know we've got an IDOR. Now, it's really important here that it has to happen on that original account we were logged into. Because we should be able to do something while being logged out, right? There's our baseline. If you want to test for IDORs, I really recommend you do it in this order. So step one, remove the cookie entirely. If that doesn't work, we can then move on to the next kind of IDOR bug, accessing another user's resource. This is where people get confused and where I think I've actually added to the misinformation. So, the first thing we need to do is create an account /login. That's our account A. That's our first account. On account A, we want to perform a bunch of requests. Okay? We want to keep that session for account A open. So we want to create a new account using account B, and I'll talk about keeping sessions open in a bit. Then we want to go to repeater, change A's cookie to B's cookie. Now what that's effectively doing is logging out of A and logging into B. Now, because we don't want to touch the rest of the request, like the URL or the body of the request, it's a really easy way when we're not necessarily sure about things like parameters just yet. What we want to see when we do this is if they've caused something to happen to account A rather than account B. If it's happened to account B, it is not an IDOR. Why is it not an IDOR? When you change the cookie, you log in as another user, right? You are no longer logged in as the user A anymore. You're logged in as user B. When an action is happening to user B, when logged on as account B, that is the correct behavior. We want to see something happen to user A. Now, any single time you play with cookies, you might be impacting the session ID. Sometimes it's super obvious, like PHP session ID, which is what PHP calls it. But sometimes it really might not be. Like when we looked at before from the request from Yahoo, we saw like B, A1, A2, A whatever, right? It doesn't give us any information. Now this is really important, right? What we want to do, go over it again, do things on account A, change account A's cookie to account B's cookie, effectively logging on as account B. And if something happens to user A's account, we've got an IDOR. Done. Easy. If something happens to user B, it is not an IDOR because you've logged in as B and you're performing an action as B. That's valid behavior. And it might be the case that you don't find an IDOR. There is no guarantee you'll find a bug. IDORs are really good to start out with and very common, but that doesn't actually mean that you're guaranteed to find one. Now, let's talk about admin functionality. So again, we create two accounts, but instead of there being two normal accounts, we have a admin account A and a normal account / user account / guest account B, right? We go in, we perform a bunch of admin actions on account A. We go into repeater and change A's cookie to the new cookie B's. And what that means is that we're essentially doing an admin user as B, the user that does admin actions, as a B, the user that is not an admin. Now we want to check and see if an admin action has happened. That is it. Now, to do almost all of this, we need to actually log into two accounts at once and keep those sessions open. So we can't actually log out or close the browser while also being able to view cookies so we can copy them. And the easy way to do them is using Firefox containers. Now I went over this in my video about hunting with Firefox containers, and I have a whole demo on how to do this and how to actually use this. But I hope this video of this tour of how cookies work and how sessions work helps clear up some of that misinformation that I have helped spread. And I hope you now go to that IDOR hunting with Firefox video, Firefox containers video, watch it and go, aha, now I understand this. Now I know I'm ready to hack. So thank you again for watching, everybody. If you like this video, I actually have a lot more videos on IDOR hunting. I have a lot more videos on API hacking. You can watch one of those now on this playlist, or you can watch a video that YouTube has picked out just for you, specially delivered. Thank you for watching, everybody. But just before we go, we have to thank Integrity. Thank you to Integrity for sponsoring my content. I really don't take having an advertiser lightly on my channel. I really do genuinely think they do amazing things for the community, and it's actually allowed me to make quite serious investments into my channel, like improving the audio and the editing. One thing I really like about them as well is that they're really interactive with their community. They're always kind of replying to hackers on Twitter. They're always trying to solve issues. They really are active, so please do give them a lot of love. You can sign up with my link on screen. That's go.integrity.com/Katie. It's in the video description. It's on screen now. Thank you very much for watching, everybody, and I will see you next time. But just before then, we have to thank our lovely Patreon supporters. So this week's Patreon shoutouts go to Sean Doody, Forrest Held, Patreon, Wardell Castles, Gynvael, Ram, James Clee, and that's it. Thank you very much, everybody, for supporting me on Patreon. I really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to seeing you all next time. Thank you very much for watching. Bye, everyone.